There are many questions as to which country or entity or union of nations or association is Babylon. This is a very important subject because in the very last book of the Bible, in Revelation, it speaks about Babylon, and it says that it is fallen. And also, Yahweh speaks directly to us and says to us, "My people, come out of her." So it is incumbent upon us to find out what Babylon is and make sure that we're not in it. So some people believe, and many people have believed, and I used to believe, that Babylon was the Catholic Church. Nowadays, also, many people believe that Babylon is the United States of America. And still some people believe that it is Iraq, where ancient Babylon was. Let's take another look at some of the key scriptures that talk about this. But let's remember that Revelation is an end-time book, and it is written to those of us that are living in the end times. In this book, clearly it talks about the harlot mystery Babylon, and then says that it will be utterly destroyed, not leaving a single person alive there. In Revelation 18:4, Yahweh specifically says to his people, "Come out of her, my people, lest you share," or so that you don't share in her sins, and so that you don't receive of her plagues. So what he is saying is that just by living in Babylon, if you are in Babylon, you are participating in her sins, and you will receive of her plagues. So, as you well know, I believe that Babylon is the United States. If you live in the United States and you are paying taxes, no matter how good of a person you think you are, if you are paying taxes, and that means every time you buy a product or you pay your yearly income tax and federal tax and state tax, some of your tax money is going to support abortions with Planned Parenthood programs. It's going to terrible teaching plans for education, teaching that homosexuality is an alternative that kids should choose, and a lot of your money is going, most of your money is going to war. Do you want to be supporting war in all these different countries? So, presumably, what was being warned about in Revelation, to come out of her, my people, is before the complete destruction that takes place of Babylon. And as we're going to see, and as you have seen in many of the scriptures that talk about Babylon, it will be utterly destroyed in the end times. So, evidently there are enough people in Babylon that Yahweh would inspire John to put down in writing that his people should get out of her before her destruction. So I have to ask you, in these end times, do you really think there are that many of Yahweh's people living in Iraq, or that are in the Catholic Church, and that they need to get out before utter destruction? You have to really ask yourself. I mean, we have to look at the biblical side, absolutely, and then you have to use a little bit of logic every once in a while and ask some good questions. Okay, I just want to ask you, have you looked at the description of Babylon? You really should not trust me at all, or any man. You need to prove this for yourself, or disprove this. If you feel strongly about this, and you feel that I'm wrong, disprove what I'm saying. Find the scriptures, please, and look at it in a balanced way, as I have showed you in all of the different videos that we've talked about this. I've showed you in a balanced way all of the scriptures from, many of the scriptures from many of the books, not just one scripture from Revelation or one scripture from Isaiah or Jeremiah. You need to look at the scriptures in a balanced way to get a good picture. You can't misquote or take a scripture out of context. So let's look at the attributes. I've put down a list of about 14 or so attributes of Babylon. that I'm going to give you the scriptures afterwards so you can look them up yourself. The first one is that Babylon, the people of Babylon, are proud, haughty, and arrogant. The people also are described as being fat. I know that sounds strange and incredible. Why would it say that? But it does say it. And it is well known that in the US there is a problem with obesity, and now it's happening in a lot of countries too. Just remember one thing about these descriptors. Maybe one of them, or two, or even five of them would fit many different countries. But all of the descriptors of Babylon that are in the Bible, all of them have to fit whatever Babylon is, whatever you think it is. If you think it's Iraq, if you think it's the Catholic Church, all of these descriptors have to fit that entity, that place. It says, number 3, that Babylon is described as the hammer of the whole earth. Number 4, a country filled with wealth, abundant in treasures. Number 5, it has a strong army and air force. Number 6, a country that sits on many waters. Number 7, a country filled with a mixture of peoples. Number 7, a country that all of the other countries stream to or flow to. Number 8, a country that has been the praise of the whole earth. Number 9, a country with a loud voice. Number 10, it's a hasty nation that possesses dwelling places that are not its own. Number 11, a country with great debt, whose creditors will rise up suddenly. It actually says this, and think of what's happening now. The U.S. is a huge debtor country right now. It used to be a creditor country, but now it's, or a lender. Now it's indebted to so many countries, like China has bought up a lot of its debt. And then it says, the creditors will rise up suddenly. When is that? Hasn't happened yet. A country that dwells securely. Well, this was a good description of the U.S. until 9/11. But still, compared to most countries in the U.S., it is a country that dwells securely. Iraq certainly doesn't dwell securely. The Catholic Church, it doesn't sound like a nation, a country, or a land. It's a religion. Number 13, a country of pleasure seekers. Number 14, a nation and land that has so many riches and merchandise that when it is destroyed, the merchants of the earth will cry and mourn because there will be nobody left to buy their merchandise anymore. That's in Revelation 18. I'm going to give you all the places to look for these scriptures. So, in the Old Testament and New Testament, we see that Babylon will be burned with fire. In both places, when you read these scriptures, you'll see that it talks about Babylon. Part of its destruction is that it will be burned with fire. Then in Isaiah 21 in verse 9, and in Revelation 18 in verse 2, that's Old and New Testament, Isaiah and Revelation, in both places it says, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. And then in Isaiah 47:8, Old Testament, and in Revelation 18:7, New Testament, it says, I shall not sit as a widow, and I sit as a queen and am no widow. You see, the language is the same. It's talking about the same place, the same people, the same country. Okay. And the rest of that verse says, nor shall I see loss of children and will not see sorrow. That's the attitude of the country. It's not what actually happens. So I challenge you to try to find in history when Babylon was utterly destroyed and burned. It never happened. Babylon was taken over by Cyrus the Great without even a battle. Babylon was still inhabited 600 years later in the time of the New Testament, because we know that the apostles sent letters to the congregation in Babylon. Disprove it or prove it for yourself. I'll give you a head start. Here are the scriptures. I'll include the scriptures in the comments. So obviously this can't be talking about Iraq because it was never destroyed like this in history. This is a future Babylon. If you like, try to prove that it is the Catholic Church, as many believe, or some other entity. Let me know if you find the proof from the Old Testament.